Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Cimmerian September, a BookTube event created, of course, by Michael K. Vaughan, designed to get you all to read Robert E. Howard's original Conan stories. The stories, the novella, the fragments that he wrote, without any pastiches, without any allegedly helpful hands mixing their quasi-fiction in with his own work. Either get the 3-volume Del Rey edition that has wonderful illustrations in addition to all the stories in the way and the order in which he developed them, or there's a big Gollancz paperback that you can get that's also very, very good. I think you can see it up there on the shelf behind me. And read all of the Conan stories in September. It doesn't take all that long, and Conan, to put it mildly, is not all that hard to read. I have embarked on my own treatment of Cimmerian September. I am doing Savage Sword of September, where I am reading or rereading all of Marvel Comics' original run on their black and white Conan magazine, Savage Sword of Conan, for my sins. Because I would say the thing went to like 270 issues, and I would say of those, probably 70 are good. All the others are not. And some of them are so bad that it's almost comical. I'm not sure that that's the kind that we're facing today, although maybe so. Your heart has to go out to the editors of this line and to its longtime writer, Roy Thomas, to come up with Conan stories over and over and over and over and over again. Not only for this, but for the 4-color comic book, Conan the Barbarian. That's endless. You know, how many adventures can you give this guy? As Conan pastiches go. It stands to reason that if you're flinging all this stuff out into, onto the drawing boards and then into the newsstands, a lot of it is not going to be very good. And by good here, I don't necessarily mean that you're going to come up with a new monster of the month. I mean you're going to capture Conan, the personality, the world that Robert E. Howard did, the Hyborian Age. If you capture that world, I'm okay with any amount of pastiche that you do. If you don't capture that world, then I'm not, really. And unfortunately, I'm going to chalk it up to the pressures of production. A lot of times, the Savage Sword of Conan does not. Case in point. Savage Sword of Conan number 102, which is called The Iron Lions of Kharamun, and which starts with a set piece. A nice, pretty set piece. The artwork here, the script is by Michael Fleischer. This is not by Roy Thomas. And the pencils are by somebody named Gary Kwapitz. I have no idea who that is, but he is inked by Ernie Chan, and I have a feeling that Ernie Chan did a lot of work here because the artwork is indistinguishable from his own when he's doing it himself. And they did it together. For the purposes of this video from here on out, I'm going to say that Ernie Chan drew this issue. And I've already mentioned that I don't particularly like him as an artist or an inker. He tends to static things up. He tends to take moving panels or panels that require action and make them very tableau-y. He tends to freeze them in place. He's a disastrous inker for some artists who are really good at capturing motion, who are very dynamic artists. He's disastrous choice there, which makes it all the more frustrating that he is so often the inker of John Buscema for Savage Sword of Conan, because Buscema is a very dynamic artist. But he does a frontispiece for this issue. There we go. It's the Iron Lions of Kharamun, where Conan is using a bow and arrow at point-blank range to fight a plumed, winged serpent. And you look at this, I look at this with the neat border around it. No other issue has this sort of a thing. And I think, okay, I guess I know the genesis of this thing. Probably this was going to be the cover of the issue. And you can sort of see that, right? Get an intern to put mountains or a full sun or a full moon or half moon as the background here. Add in colors. Add in your inking and your shading and whatnot, and this would probably work for a cover. It's a classic Argosy all-story fantasy cover. I'm guessing that this was probably done for that reason. But then something else came up in the course of this issue, and it's something you really can't ignore. And that something is if Bill Sienkiewicz wants to draw your cover. Those of you who are not comic book fans, or only Conan fans, will not know the name of Bill Sienkiewicz, but he's a towering figure. I think he's a bit of a loon, and I don't always think his artwork is any good, but he's huge. And if he wants to do a full-color cover for your issue, you take it. Even if you've got one already done that fits the issue. This cover that he does for issue number 102 It's significantly better than anything that Ernie Chan could do. But as you can see, it's just a Conan portfolio piece. It doesn't have anything to do with the issue. It's just Bill Sienkiewicz drew and painted a cover of Conan. Now, if you have this on tap, you're going to take it and relegate the piece done by your own artist to the inside of the story. But this is the story of the warring desert band of the Zwargirs. They're a warring. They are a scruff, vicious, sort of desperado band. They rob, they thieve, they steal. And Conan is their leader, a legendary leader. We've already seen this. It's come up a few times before in Savage Sword of Conan. In this story, he is their leader. But they aren't the only ravaging desert band. There are other bands of bloodthirsty mercenaries. And one of those bands attacks a Turanian city. And they ride into that city, trampling this poor woman and her baby. And also, they spear this guy, and he very eloquently says, "Gah!" And then they break through the city, and their leader says, "Seize every object of value, cut the hearts out of all who resist, and then put the entire town to the torch." Which, that is ransacking 101. Thanks. I think your men already know that. They succeed in doing that. They put the town to the sword and all the inhabitants. Then they notice dust on the horizon. Is some Turanian satrap sent his guards to make things right? No, it's another band of mercenaries. It's the Zwargirs, led by Conan the Barbarian. Here he is in this bottom panel here, and again, I want you to notice how static that is. What direction are these things moving in? There's no sense of motion at all. And also, there's no way that Conan could get his horse to go forward if he's using both his hands to brandish swords. It looks ridiculous. Also, there's absolutely no point in wearing a turban over your head if you're going to be topless. It's just, that's bad enough. But the next panel really illustrates what I'm saying about Ernie Chan. The next panel is the Zwargirs, the whole mounted mass of them, slamming into the ranks of the mercenaries that are already in this town. And this is that panel. What is even going on in this panel? Your eye goes clockwise to 4 o'clock in anything that you look at. When you get to 4 o'clock in this panel, you've got men just standing there. They don't even look tensed. They're not even on the balls of their feet like they were playing tennis. They're just standing there. Horses are clashing there, but it's completely boring. It's a completely static picture. And the Zwargirs get the best of them. They get the best of this other band. They rout them and also kill a lot of them. And Conan gives instructions to his men. He says, "I want those fires put out at once. Then release the wenches they had planned to abduct and tend to the wounded, and return all that booty to its rightful owners, except for the richest merchants, from whom we'll take half of what they would have had, or what they would have lost." And his second in command, Ahmed Sud, is cleaning his sword. See, there's Conan in his snazzy trousers. He's cleaning his sword and saying, "Ha, such magnanimity, Conan. It's philanthropists we're to become instead of desert rovers." And Conan says, "Now you listen to me, Ahmed Sud. You're a good man in a fight, which is why I've raised you to my second in command. But so long as I remain first in command, we'll do things my way. Do you understand that, dog?" And he throws him into the garbage, which is not how you treat your second in command. And he is upset, so he kicks an old guy. But the immediate question that you Conan fans will have here is, why is this Conan's way? Of course he would not do this. Of course Conan would not say, let's pass out bandages and make sure we apportion all the stolen loot. We're going to give back loot to these people and tend to the wounded. For God's sake, you don't have to make Conan the villain. But this is a perfect example of what Michael K. Vaughan classically called in a comment just the other day, Conan the Correct. This is probably the earliest known example of Conan the Correct. All you'll get now will be Conan the Correct. But you Conan fans know what Conan would do in this situation. He might treat kindly a wench that he takes for himself in the town. One wench that he takes for himself. But he would never tell his men to give back booty, put out fires. Why? For a ruined town? Why? They would turn on him instantly. Instead of just Ahmed Sud. They don't. But Ahmed Sud has a bee in his bonnet now, and it turns out he's not the only one. There are plenty of others, Wargears and others in the Turanian steppes who don't like Conan, who've had one problem with him after another, and they all gather together. I admit, an elaborate set piece here, but look at how static it is. Look, it just sits there. And, it's gentlemen to evil. They all get together and decide what they're going to do about Conan. There are huge blocks of exposition here when it's not necessary. But their leader decides on a plan. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense either in Robert E. Howard's world. He says, clearly this Conan must be harshly dealt with, but in a manner that will ensure his being despised by our young Wargears as a spineless coward and not honored by them as either a hero or a martyr. Which means, Frida, cut it out, Pete. Which means they can't kill him. They can't ostracize him and they can't kill him because they're afraid of making him a hero or a martyr. I'm not trying to be bloody-minded, but I'm sure that your imagination has already come up with ways they could do this, other than the way they're going to take. They could, for instance, mob him with 100 people so that they have him in their power and cut both his arms off. Cauterize the shoulder blades and cut both his arms off. Still Conan, still with muscles out his ears, still with the arrogant attitude, but completely helpless. That would do the trick. They don't do that. Instead, their leaders go to a deserted temple out in the desert. And again, it's a big splash page. I guess it's good. I couldn't do this. But they go to this ruined temple. That is another nice image there. This one here. That is a nice image. That's well done. And they have a reason. Their leader has brought a virgin to the temple of the lion goddess Kharamun. He wants to offer her, I think that's her name anyway, I'm not sure that she's ever named in the issue. He wants to offer this virgin to this goddess in exchange for supernatural vengeance against Conan. And I guess she's just hanging around in her temple, because she shows up right away with her iron lions, these semi-human iron-masked figures that are her servitors. She doesn't do anything directly out in the world. You have to come to her temple for her to do anything. She just shows up when he calls on her. And she's a goddess. She's not a fraud. She's not a human sorceress or anything like that. She's a goddess. This guy has brought her a virgin in exchange that she will kill, a human sacrifice, in exchange for her taking supernatural measures against Conan. Because she has come up, she knows a way that where he can be defeated and be scorned as a coward. But you've got a goddess at your beck and call, and you're apparently able to bribe her. Why wouldn't you just tell her to evaporate Conan? No hero or martyr necessary. He's not around anymore. Why not just evaporate him? She doesn't do that. Instead, she takes the sacrifice, and she tells this guy, the leader, that she will deal with Conan. She will deliver a way to make him a figure of scorn for the young Wargear. Now, I've been looking at a lot of these comics. I have not noticed any young Wargear, but the Iron Lions descend on Conan's camp. There's some pretty good visuals. They are static, but there are some pretty good visuals where they descend on all the watchmen and systematically kill them. They surprise Conan in bed with a wench, so it is assumed that that is how they capture him, because they do. The next panel, he is being brought in chains before this lion goddess. He's thrown on the ground in front of her, and she has a plan. She will create a sorcery, the image of a dagger, which will imprint itself on Conan's forehead and make it so that he cannot look at swords anymore. He cannot bear one, cannot see one around him. He has a complete revulsion to swords. Now, in the meantime, we see the obvious, which is that Conan's wench is perfectly okay cozying up to Ahmed Zud. But before we can get much more of that, Conan shows up in camp. And she runs to him with Pippi Longstocking dress for some reason. I don't know why she has a Pippi Longstocking dress on. I guess because it's just a bad artist. She runs to Conan and tells him that Ahmed Zud planned to take his place, and that he needs to kill this man in order to cement the fact that he's still the leader of the Wargears. Someone throws him a sword, and he says, "Take it away! Take it away!" He can't stand to even look at it. Ahmed Zud kicks him like a beggar in the street. All the men are astounded. Notice none of them are young. So I don't know who this was meant to work on, but eventually they throw rocks at him to get him out of camp because he's a figure of scorn. It has worked. And we get to Zambula, which is it's a city in Robert E. Howard's Turanian Empire. And in this city is Conan the beggar. He's just begging for coins. He doesn't know what else to do. Passing nobleman gives him a coin, and it is taken from him by other roughs in the street, and he can't do anything about it. They just beat him up. And meanwhile, back at camp, Ahmed Zud is still having words with Conan's wench. He tells her, "Blast you, wench! I've had a bellyful of your airs these past 3 weeks, a bellyful enough to last me a lifetime. You Northborn wenches are all hot-blooded and high-spirited, I've heard. So that's good, because so am I." She's not giving him the time of day, and neither are those creatures. I think those might be cats, but who draws a cat that way? Even I can draw a cat better than that. From now on, you'll keep those flaxen tresses of yours loose and unfettered where I can see them. Do you understand me? And these cursed clothes you've been hiding under, do you think this is an abode of monks? And she calls out to Mitra, "Oh, Mitra, protect me." And he says, "Mitra, forget Mitra, girl. Here, I am God." So things aren't going well in the Zwargir camp, unless you're Ahmed Zud. Whereas in the city, Conan is being scorned even by dogs, until a young woman and her young boy take mercy on him. Boy thinks he's dead. The woman says, no, he's just starving. So they bring him into their home, and they give him a good meal, and they give him a good night's sleep, but they have helped him. And the Iron Lions are not happy about that. They break down her door, and they kill her. They kill her and her son. Conan leaps for a sword, and it repels him because of his curse. So he just has to flee, because these two people who helped him have been butchered in their home. He flees into the mountains. And in the mountains, he, by coincidence, encounters a kindly old priest who used to, in his younger days, fight against the Iron Lions. Never winning, never besting them. And he is sure that he can come up with a cure for Conan. But he needs the crimson lotus, a flower that grows only in the mountains. Conan needs to go and get it. And he's, of course, going to need to be armed. He can't touch a sword, but this guy convinces him that maybe he can touch a bow and arrow. So Conan goes up into the wilderness to find this thing, and it is guarded by the aforementioned plumed winged serpent. They fight for a while. Conan finds a conveniently positioned rock that he thinks he might be able to dislodge on this thing, but even when he does, it's not enough. It's not enough to seriously hurt the thing. He's going to need to use his bow and arrow, and he does. He gets a winning shot off and kills the thing. Brings the crimson flower back to the priest, but the Iron Lions are there. The priest is also helping this guy. And somehow they show up. They find him, and they slash him with their sword. They haven't killed him. They slash his cheek with the sword. They're clearly going to kill him. But that's too much for Conan, who grabs a sword. He says no. He grabs a sword, and he starts fighting the Iron Lions, and easily dispatching them. Splits one of their iron masks right in half. Why he couldn't do this when a helpless woman and child who had helped him were being butchered, I don't know. I have no idea. Why he can do it now for a guy who has a cut on his cheek that's going to heal, but not for them. They're dead. I don't know. I have no idea. But he does. And the priest reveals to him that the mark is gone from his forehead. So it turns out that the curse of Kharamun, the real curse of Kharamun, is the friends we made along the way. It's through strength of will and urgency of need that Conan overcomes a supernatural curse. That's not how things work in Sword and Sorcery. That's not how things work in Robert E. Howard. There has to be another way. It can't just be a feel-good moment where Conan has his Rudy moment where he thinks, if I just try hard enough, if I believe, then I'll be healed. And yet that's what we get. It should be that if you were rewriting this, maybe he brings the flower back to the priest concocts a cure for the curse. It doesn't seem to work, and while the priest and Conan are wondering what to do next, the Iron Lions show up. They wound the priest. Conan finds that he can fight them, and it turns out that the curse needed a minute to work. That it did work, that the counter effect did work. That would have been easy to do. Instead, it's just that all he needed to do was believe. So we get another full-page panel. Conan ready to go. He wants revenge. And this, we have a lizard running out of the way here, but it's. I mean, like I said, I couldn't do this, but I'm imagining what other artists could do with a panel like this, and it's nothing like this. This is frameable mainly because it doesn't jump out at you. He gets back to the camp of the Zwargirs, and he bursts in on his tent where Ahmed Zud is making time with his wench. And he's so angry that there is no coloring in his words. he is so angry at this. Ahmed Zud is unarmed, and he tells Conan that. He says, I'm unarmed, as Conan is running right toward him. She runs towards Conan, and he just swats her aside. Conan is running towards him, and he grabs an end table. And Conan punches him through the end table and lands him on the ground. And that's a pretty good idea as far as action goes, but look how it is ruined. Look how poorly it's done. Conan punches him through the end table, but Conan's helmet is in front of that action. You don't see it. You have to intuit it from this panel. You don't actually see it because the head is in the wrong. There are 8 different ways you could draw this panel where you would see that, where you would get the full dramatic effect. This is pretty much the one way you could draw it where you won't. Why some editor didn't see this and say, well, you know, it's fairly good detail, but this needs to be redone. I want to see this. I don't want to be guessing at it. Then Conan comes out of the tent, and he has blood on his fists. But in the previous panel, Ahmed Zud is still alive. He's just been punched. So Conan kills him off camera. After all this time, after us getting, what was it again? A whole panel of being told that the only thing that's firing him up is a desire for revenge against this man. That's all we're thinking of. That's all we've been thinking of in this whole issue. And he dies off camera. Conan kills him, but that's it. We don't see it. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Think about rearranging these panels so that we get the panel where, since it's Savage Sword of Conan, you can be a little bit more brutal, a little bit more explicit in your bloodletting. Picture the scene where Conan splits the top half of his body in two with that axe. That would have been much more satisfying on a Robert E. Howard type of level than this is. He stalks through the men, calling them scum, and they're wounded. Believe it or not. Scum? What do you mean, scum? All we did was throw rocks at you, scorn you, throw you out of camp, and enlist with your mortal enemy. Well, what do you mean, scum? It's like their feelings are hurt. And he rides off. He rides off alone. That's the end of the story. He's pushed a wench aside. He's killed Ahmed Zud, we guess. I don't know. Has he maybe not? And he just rides off. He calls all his men scum and rides off. And that's it. That is the Iron Lions of Kharamun. Which I think you'll agree with me that is bewildering. That as an issue is just bewildering. None of it makes any sense. None of it, at no point is Conan in character. None of it is consistent. When those beggars, those fellow roughs in the city, in Zambula, when they are roughing Conan up for his coins, for the coin that he begged, they have clubs. Why can't Conan fight them? He doesn't have to use a sword to fight them. He doesn't even have to care about using a sword to fight them. Well, he could just beat them up. How many times have we seen Conan do that to armed opponents? He doesn't even think of it. He could also, judging from the 4-panel ease with which he dispatches the Iron Lions, he could easily have beaten them without a sword too. But pretty much we can safely say that the Sankiewicz cover is the best thing about this issue. I'm pretty sure that when I originally bought this on the newsstand, that was my thinking. I was thinking, oh, well, how bad can the issue be if it's got a cover by Bill Sankiewicz? And then I learned. so that is our foray for Cimmerian September this time around. I know every time I encounter a stinkeroo like this one, I always tell myself, let's go back to a Savage Sword of Conan story that you know is good, that you know you like. But part of my project here has been to read a lot of these Savage Swords that I've only read once, that didn't make any impression on me, or that I've never read. And there are only so many days in Cimmerian September, after all. So I missed a day yesterday, but I will try not to miss another day in September, and we'll just go through the whole of Savage Sword. I don't know what I'll do tonight. I'll pick one at random tonight. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.